The year 1968 wasn't just about music. It was the year that Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy were assassinated, the year of the Tet Offensive in Vietnam. But through the chaos, these songs defined a generation and changed music forever. Today, we're diving into the tracks that made 1968 revolutionary. Sunshine of Your Love by Cream emerged during one of rock's most volatile periods. Cream formed in 1966 when Eric Clapton left John Mayall's Blues Breakers, tired of playing traditional blues. He joined forces with Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker, two musicians who actually despised each other. Their personal animosity created an electric tension that fueled their music, but ultimately tore the band apart. Many don't realize that Baker once pulled a knife on Bruce during a performance, showing just how fraught their relationship was. The British press initially dismissed them as privileged rock stars with inflated egos, particularly criticizing Clapton for abandoning blues purism for commercial success. Cream's meteoric rise and abrupt fall marked one of rock's first supergroups. Despite immense commercial success, they lasted barely 2 years before disbanding in November of 1968, just as Sunshine of Your Love was cementing their legacy. Clapton went on to form Blind Faith and later enjoyed a celebrated solo career, while Baker pursued jazz fusion and Bruce maintained a respected, if less visible, presence in music. Clapton, the sole surviving member following Bruce's death in 2014 and Baker's in 2019, has openly acknowledged that the band's dysfunction prevented them from reaching their full potential. Their final album, Goodbye, was released after they had already split, with half of it recorded live to fulfill contractual obligations. Their 2005 reunion concerts at Royal Albert Hall were marked by visible tension, particularly when Baker added unrehearsed drum solos that visibly annoyed Clapton. This Guy's in Love with You by Herb Alpert represented a dramatic departure for an artist who dominated instrumental music. Alpert, who founded A&M Records in 1962 with Jerry Moss, had achieved unprecedented success with his Tijuana Brass, selling over 72 million albums. What most listeners don't know is that Alpert wasn't originally planning to sing on record. The story goes that during a television special, Alpert needed a segment where he could appear with his wife, and Bacharach David offered this composition. Alpert, insecure about his voice, initially rejected the idea. The CBS television special titled The Beat of the Brass was conceived as a showcase for the Tijuana Brass, with a vocal performance intended merely as a sentimental interlude. Network executives were skeptical about including what they saw as an amateur vocal performance in prime time, suggesting they cut the segment entirely. After reluctantly recording the song with Bacharach's arrangement, Alpert was shocked when it became his first and only #1 pop hit as a vocalist. The trumpet player, who'd built his empire on instrumental music, had ironically achieved his greatest chart success by singing. In the decades since, Alpert has continued as a musical entrepreneur and philanthropist, donating millions to arts education through the Herb Alpert Foundation. At 92 years old, he still performs occasionally and remains actively involved in the management of his business interest, having sold A&M to Polygram in 1989 for a reported $500 million. His 1979 instrumental Rise brought him back to #1, making him one of the few artists to top the charts in different decades with both vocal and instrumental performances. The sale of A&M Records made Alpert and Moss among the wealthiest figures in the music industry, though Alpert later expressed regret about the sale when Polygram was absorbed by Universal. Do you remember where you were when you first heard these songs? Share your memories in the comments below. If you're enjoying this musical journey through 1968, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more trips down memory lane. And hey, share this with a friend who still has their vinyl collection gathering dust in the attic. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly by Hugo Montenegro brought the cinematic sounds of spaghetti westerns into American living rooms. Montenegro, a classically trained composer who began his career writing for military bands during World War II, had been working as an arranger and conductor at RCA Victor when Sergio Leone's Western trilogy captivated audiences. What's particularly interesting is that Montenegro's version wasn't the original soundtrack. It was a cover of Ennio Morricone's theme that outsold and outperformed the original in America. His reinterpretation used electronic elements and studio techniques that purists criticized as commercializing Morricone's artistry. Film score purists particularly objected to Montenegro's use of the Moog synthesizer, which hadn't been used in the original film. Montenegro defended his approach by arguing that he was translating European film music into an American pop idiom, making it accessible to listeners who might have never seen the film. Montenegro's adaptation demonstrated how movie themes could become pop hits in their own right. His version featured innovative use of the Moog synthesizer along traditional orchestration, helping bridge the gap between orchestral film scores and contemporary pop. After this breakthrough, Montenegro went on to compose for television shows including The Partridge Family and I Dream of Jeannie. Though he passed away in 1981 at just 55, his influence on bringing film music into the pop mainstream remains significant. His work helped establish the soundtrack album as a commercial entity separate from the film itself. The success of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly prompted RCA to commission Montenegro to record an entire album of reimagined Western themes. His arrangement style, which emphasized rhythmic elements and memorable melodic hooks rather than complex harmonies, became the template for how film music could be repackaged for radio airplay. Mrs. Robinson by Simon and Garfunkel emerged from one of the most unexpected collaborations in cinema history. Director Mike Nichols approached Paul Simon to write new music for The Graduate, but Simon was skeptical about writing songs on commission. The initial draft of Mrs. Robinson was actually titled Mrs. Roosevelt and had nothing to do with the film character. When Nichols heard the unfinished song, he insisted on using it despite Simon's protests that it wasn't ready. The film version contains nonsense syllables where proper lyrics hadn't yet been written, evidence of its rushed adaptation. The dee-dee-dee placeholder vocalization in the film version was never intended to be heard by the public. When Nichols insisted on using the unfinished piece anyway, Simon felt his artistic process had been violated. Columbia Records pressured the duo to finish and record a proper version for single release, resulting in Simon having to reverse engineer a song that had already become famous in its incomplete form. The controversy surrounding the song intensified after its release. The reference to Joe DiMaggio, "Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? A nation turns its lonely eyes to you," puzzled the baseball legend, who reportedly approached Simon at a restaurant saying, "I haven't gone anywhere." Simon had to explain that the line wasn't literal, but metaphorical about the loss of authentic heroes. Beyond the film, the song captured America's disillusionment during a turbulent period. Simon and Garfunkel's partnership, already strained during this period, would break apart in 1970. Both pursued solo careers, with Simon achieving greater commercial success, while Garfunkel focused on acting and recording standards. Their periodic reunions, while commercially successful, have been marked by the same personal tensions that originally drove them apart. The complete version that appeared on their Bookends album contained verses that directly referenced the film's plot, including The Seduction of Benjamin by Mrs. Robinson. Radio stations were uncomfortable with these suggestive lyrics, and many played an edited version that removed the more explicit references. Tighten Up by Archie Bell and the Drells represented a breakthrough for Texas soul music at a time when Detroit and Memphis dominated the R&B landscape. What's remarkable about the song's genesis is that Bell recorded it just before being drafted into the Army to serve in Vietnam. The famous introduction, "Hi everybody, I'm Archie Bell of the Drells from Houston, Texas," was specifically added because Bell was tired of hearing that no good music came from Texas. The regional pride in the recording was a direct challenge to the music industry's geographic biases, with Bell deliberately emphasizing his Houston origins to put Texas soul on the map. The Drells had formed while Bell was still in high school, originally performing as a vocal group at talent shows around Houston's Fifth Ward. Local DJ Skipper Lee Frazier became their manager after seeing them perform at a talent show. Frazier connected them with the TSU Tornadoes, the Texas Southern University house band, to provide instrumentation. The song's success came with unusual timing. Shortly after recording, Bell was indeed drafted and serving in Vietnam when Tighten Up unexpectedly topped the charts. He learned of his #1 hit while recovering from a leg injury sustained in combat. The record label had initially shelved the recording, releasing it only as an afterthought when they needed product. Upon Bell's return from service, he found himself a star without having been present for his rise to fame. The group continued recording into the 1970s with Philadelphia International Records, working with Gamble and Huff, though they never again achieved the commercial heights of Tighten Up. Bell continues to perform today, one of the few active performers from that era, still bringing that authentic Texas soul sound to audiences. The story of how Tighten Up became a hit involves several strokes of luck. A DJ in Florida accidentally played the B-side of another single, discovering Tighten Up and putting it into heavy rotation based on overwhelming listener response. The song moved from regional success to national phenomenon throughout this grassroots exposure. The sounds of 1968 reflected a world in transition, from war protests to civil rights, and from analog to electronic music. These songs weren't just hits. They were the soundtrack to revolution. If you enjoyed this trip back to '68, hit subscribe for more music history that matters, and share your memories in the comments. Your story is part of this musical legacy too.